All right, I know that there were a couple more people who were coming. I told them we were going to start about 11:45, so we're all here. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it, you coming out on a Sunday to be here at church, and then staying with us for a little while longer. I am going to be looking at my laptop a little bit here as well, and so I want to say thank you to Liz Strong, who's here, and to Dr. John Hill, and most definitely the leadership of the church for hosting this today. I think some people are going to be also on live stream, and I'm not sure if it's being recorded or not. I just want to make sure, does everybody hear? It is live stream too? Okay. Is everybody hearing me okay? And you could all see my mouth, right? Okay, good. So I like to ask how many people are struggling with hearing loss typically. Not everybody's going to raise their hands. I definitely am struggling with hearing loss. Right on. Good for you. Good for you. Thank you. So some of us have hearing aids in, some of us don't. Some of us have cochlear implants, some of us don't. And I just want to say thank you to everybody again for being here. And I, just by installing, my name is Judy, and just by installing a loop in this venue, you're trailblazers, right? So the leadership, everybody understood that we were putting this in here, and you're trailblazers and announcing to the community that you are pioneers in assistive listening. You are demonstrating to your community that you want to do the very best that you can to make this venue an inclusive, accessible space for those in your community who live with hearing loss. So I thank you again. Who am I? My name is Judy, and it's a pleasure to be with you. And, whoops, it's not clicking. Okay, there we go. Is it best for me to do that? Okay. So, again, my name is Judy, and I really appreciate you being here. I'm so happy that I'm here with you. In the 80s, my husband and I moved, in the 80s, I moved from New York to California, and in 2006, that is my son calling from Israel. Oh, well. That's my son calling from Israel. So at any rate, my older son was 10 when we moved to Tucson. My younger son was 6. And my husband and I packed up from California and came here. So we're really happy to be in North Tucson. I've always been a connector, people to resources, and I live to help others. I have been, in about 3 years ago, I realized that I too had been impacted with hearing loss. I had colon cancer back in 2010, and it affected my hearing. So I realized that I needed hearing aids, and I started wearing hearing aids. So I've been an advocate, and I also am a member of Aloha, Adult Loss of Hearing Association, and so I'm very active with that. I want to thank, there's some members here from Aloha. We'll have brochures later on. Aloha is the adult loss of hearing. We also have some hearing healthcare providers here. Because of you and you with hearing loss, we really appreciate you helping people educate and advocate for hearing loops. So I just want to say thank you again. And let's see here. Who is this English chap? This gentleman over here is James, and he is my colleague. He is at the helm of OTOJOY. I've been with OTOJOY for now almost a year, and James has been here for almost 4 years. He is a speech and language pathologist by background, and he also has a 20-year track record of being in the industry, and he led a hearing loop company in the UK. And I'm just going to tell you, he is much, much more well-versed at presenting than I am. I haven't done this a lot, so thank you for being patient. He's done this many times, and when we have questions and answers, he'll be able to answer questions as well. So, James, thank you for being here. And let's see. So, why assisted listening, right? We're here today. We're hooked up, we're connected to our hearing aids, we're connected to our loop, we're doing our best to understand what's going on. Why assisted listening? Well, because one in four adults in the US live with hearing loss. It's the most prevalent disability in the world. As a larger age-related disability, that number gets bigger the older we get. So 60% of us in our 60s have hearing loss, 70% of us in our 70s, 80%, 90%, and so on. So somewhere along the line, maybe at 100, we might end up having hearing loss, right? If we don't already now. So, what does society do to help people living with hearing loss? Well, we know that, click. Okay, you're not clicking. There it is. So we know that most common solution, right, are hearing aids. Okay, so most people wear hearing aids, and they're tiny, right? For most part right now, they're tiny. They're not like they used to look like when 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And for people who don't have, who have a more significant, profound hearing loss, people are wearing cochlear implants, right? So people have cochlear implants as well. So, in one-on-one situations, let's go back to, so one-on-one situations, they work great, right? Here, this is James' father-in-law, and he is enjoying a conversation in a small group set, right, in one-on-one, indoors, and it's working really great. And also outside. Here he is with his daughter, and he knows that his hearing aids are doing a great job, and maybe it's because he's outside enjoying a beverage. I'd like to believe, though, that it's his hearing aids that's really helping him in this situation. So what happens now is what might not be a terrific situation is in a large venue like this church. That church, I think, is a little bigger than the church that we're in today. In this large venue, the hearing aids might not be able to discriminate everything that's going on that the wearer wants to hear and every sound in the church. So the hearing aids are definitely amplifying, right? But they also are amplifying what the noise might be, the ambient background noise. So right now it's pretty quiet in here, but you might be hearing the background, the shuffling of the papers, right? You might be hearing some kids in the background not listening to the service and just playing or speaking a little loudly, right? So what happens with this is it's not only in a church, it's also in a performing arts center, it's in a movie theater, it's in bingo halls, it's in council chambers. I keep touching this and it's not. It's in a council chamber. Come in a council chamber. Okay, so as I said, it's in fact, it could be anywhere that sound is usually played through a loudspeaker in the venue. The resulting experience for those with hearing loss is pretty bad. It's unfortunate, and most people over time just choose to no longer attend the venue that they want to, which is kind of sad, right? I mean, how many people here have found that they don't want to go to certain places because they're not able to hear, right? I wish I could see faces, but I know I can't. So I see your eyes, and your eyes are getting bigger. So, I understand that that's happening. So we tend to withdraw from where we might be. And we don't go because we can't understand, and we become isolated and excluded, and that's not a good feeling. So, what's the solution? You saw that when you walked in. That's a universal placard sign everywhere. I didn't say in the beginning that this technology has been around for a long time. It was patented in the late 30s, and it's all over Europe, where James comes from, right? It's prevalent in Europe. It's just starting to become more acceptable here and understand, that it's coming more to the States. It's been around for maybe 10 years or so. So you're now gonna walk out of here and you're gonna be so cognizant of seeing that, and that's a good thing. So there is a solution, and the solution is an induction hearing loop. And this picture gives you a really good example of how that technology works. A loop of wire is run around the perimeter of the room. The wire is then connected to the hearing loop amplifier, which in turn gets connected into the sound system that already exists in the room. The sound system is, right, the speakers are here. So it already exists, the sound speakers already exist in the room. So now when the sound is played through the loudspeaker, it's also played through the hearing loop, and it's also played directly into the person's listening. So in this situation, let's go here. Hi, Sheila. Thanks. Okay, so it's up here. It's in there. Thanks, Sheila. Okay. Oh, not there. Oh, thank you. Don't we love technology? Isn't technology grand? Yeah. I sometimes don't realize I'm 61. I feel like I'm like, I don't know. Technology. So in this church, let's see, I'm going to point it up there. We're using, for example, this could be, wait, did I do that right? Yeah, okay. Oh, that works so much better. So we're using a church, for example, here, but this could be any type, right? We've talked about any type. And in this example, the pastor is standing where I'm standing, right? And then there's, they're using either a wireless microphone or a microphone that we're using here. And I just can't see that far, that's why. And then there's the microphone. And then the microphone is connected to the soundboard there. And then the soundboard is played through the loudspeakers, which are up there and up there. And as I said, the loudspeakers are here. So the microphone is connected. Typically, this is how it's typically set up in every environment that we're in, where the sound is played through loudspeakers, and this is how it works. Okay, so let me show you how we would install a loop in here, how we did that. So this is a bigger church. The loop here is connected to these areas right here in this area here. So, and how it works in most, okay. All right, in this situation, the space, they take it and they put it underneath the carpeting. So this is underneath the carpeting here, and then you'll see here that it, okay, there you go. it goes to, the wire terminates into the amplifier in the room. And that's how that works. So, okay. And now, literally like this, probably like we said, underneath the carpeting, sometimes it's in the baseboard, sometimes it's in the ceiling, and that's how we install the loop. And, okay, so now what happens is, we have the technology, right? So now what happens getting it from the venue into our hearing device, Okay. No, I did it, thanks so much. Just a little jitters, and that's okay. So we would then connect the hearing loop amplifier, what I said there, okay. Right, what we said, we could connect the amplifier, we connect the loop, and then what we do is from the T-coil, as we know, we have a T-coil or a telecoil, and that is a tightly wound piece of wire, right? So if we think back to the telephone, telephones have that copper wire, sound miraculously comes into your telephone, into your ear. They found that a T-coil, or this copper wire, is now in hearing aids and in cochlear implants. And the sound transmit the same way that it would with a telephone. So, again, why is it? Okay, so great, do we have that? Do we have a T-coil? And do we have, how are we going to know that we have a T-coil? So again, 90% of all hearing aids have a T-coil, and 100% of cochlears have T-coils. It's very similar, next slide, it's very similar to a Bluetooth, right? How a Bluetooth works between your phone and a pair of wireless headphones. The only difference is that the Bluetooth works between one device and one other device, your phone and your car example, right? Your car phone, whereas a hearing loop can pair with dozens of T-coils and in the same room without any loss of sound quality. It does not matter if you have one person in church listening through hearing aids or even or every person in church listening through hearing aids, they will get the same great experience. So, no matter where you're sitting in the venue, you're going to have crystal clear sound wherever you're sitting, right? You see those three places? You're going to have crystal clear sound, and what happens is that awful background, distracting ambient sound is gone. So even better for those of us like me who have hearing aids, you who raised your, right? It's tuned to our specific hearing loss, so we can hear even more so. And again, if we're finding that we're not able to hear and understand, it's frustrating. And now, all of a sudden, we're going into a venue and we can hear, we can understand what's going on, and it's quite emotional. I remember being in my first loop not too long ago, and I don't have a significant hearing loss, supposedly, and I had tears running down my eyes because I was so happy that I could hear better, and I knew that folks like yourselves would be able to hear better as well. So that's very exciting. All right, in this example, we are going to you'll be able to hear it. I mean, the slide will speak for itself, and picture yourself, if you don't have a hearing loss, right, you're going to be able to hear what it is in this slide. For somebody who does wear hearing aids, who is not using the loop, and then somebody who's wearing hearing aids who is in the loop, and it's pretty significant. So let's make sure that I can do this.
Judy, it played while you were talking, but with no sound. So I don't know if the person
Sheila, are you able to help us with that? Okay, you know what? I'm going to do something that's... Okay, you try it in the meantime.
And Judy, you'll need to go back one slide. And then when you go forward, it's going to play automatically. On the next clip. But wait till Sheila tells you she has the sound. Sound on. Great.
Okay, let's try this. Let's go back. And now let's go. And click again.
And then how did you get the rest of the team enrolled in those?
Yeah, so thank you, Christina, because these are pretty.
Okay, so that, you could really hear the difference with that, I believe, right? I mean, if I were to ask you how many people could hear what he was saying beforehand, I don't think many of us could understand what words he was saying. And then when it was in the loop, we could hear more. So the difference is night and day. And that's amazing. So how do we connect to a hearing loop? Well, it depends. I love that. Everything depends. So way back when, hearing aids might have looked like that. And on the hearing aid, there's a little program button. And when you toggle through that program button, it will tell you in your ears, it speaks in your ears, and it says this program or that program or that program. So that's a possibility. And if you have maybe a newer hearing aid, it will come with an app. Everything comes with an app these days, right? So on your smartphone, like what I do is on my smartphone, I go into my remote control, and on that, I go into my public T-coil. I did that this morning before I came in here. So that's what we can do with a smartphone, and trust me, I already told you, not technical. I was able to make it work, so we'll be able to help you with that afterwards as well. And so that's a great way that we can get that to work as well. So the next slide is the activation. And what we want to do with that is many hearing aids, as I was telling you, have the T-coil included, right? And again, cochlears do as well. Audiologists, hearing healthcare providers, they are wonderful with working with you, and especially if you go in and you tell them that you want your T-coil to be activated, they'll be able to activate it. It takes a matter of seconds, minutes. Just schedule your appointment with your hearing healthcare provider, and they'll be able to do that for you. Again, afterwards, we can tell you probably if you have it with you or not, because we have some hearing healthcare providers here who will be able to help us, and we'd love to be able to do that with you. So if you don't have a hearing device, right? There are people who struggle in churches. There are people who struggle wherever, and they don't want to wear hearing aids yet. Or maybe they have a hearing loss that doesn't warrant a hearing device. And so we have a solution for that. So today, you might have received a headphone and a receiver, and that's what it looks like, okay? The venue that you go to typically will have something like that, and you can also use earbuds. We have, they're loop buds also. You can plug that into your cell phone, and of course there's an app for that as well, and you would just be able to hear pretty much the way that you hear with a hearing aid. So we can help you out with that. So both options should be here as well. And now we're almost done. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So here we are in a large venue, right? And we have a loop installed. But what happens when, I mean, picture yourself being at the bank or the post office or your pharmacy, right? And now with the masks on and you're talking to someone, a customer service rep, and you are having just a hellacious time trying to understand. It's frustrating for them as well as it's frustrating for you. There's what we call a counter loop, and counter loops we can put in as well, and that's helpful. You can also have a loop in your home. That's possible. And if you don't want to put it in yourself, we can do that for you as well. So that's another application. And right now, we're going to finish up by saying that there are other institutions, associations who advocate for installations, for hearing loop installations. I want you to do some homework. I'm not going to give you a test, but I want you to do some homework. I want you to think back. Stories tell. I've told you that I have hearing loss, right? And I have amazing stories. And I think that if you are able to share your experiences and visit the venues that you go to and be able to tell people that you want to be able to hear better, that's really important as well. So there's Loops and Coils. That's a gentleman who has had hearing loss for 30 years, and he's just an incredible advocate, as many of you are advocates, and you will become even more advocates, advocating for this technology and just helping people with hearing loss. There's also the HLAA, and they have the Get in the Hearing Loop campaign. These are very easy websites to get onto. And we also have locally Aloha, the Adult Loss of Hearing Association, which I've told you, and I'm looking around the room and I see my fellow Aloha members, and I'm so thrilled. So Carl is here, Nancy's here, Cynthia's here. We have a hearing healthcare provider, Susan is here, and my husband Scott is here. And again, I'm trying to see who else is here that I know who is in the industry. So there's really so much. Tell stories. I went into Brookdale, Santa Catalina a couple of weeks ago. We installed a loop there. OTOJOY installed a loop there. And it was perfect timing for their New Year's Eve celebration. And the residents there were absolutely able to understand what was going on. And those stories are what we want to be able to share. So I thank you. I'm sure I missed a bunch of stuff, and I'm sure that you also were able to get an idea of what it's like having the loop here at Trinity Church. Thank you again for that. And where else we want to have it installed, how we can do that, how it all works. I would love to have people ask some questions, and we can take this microphone, and maybe James can hold it if people don't want to, or Dr. Hill can, or we have another one. We have another hearing, a microphone. So I know people might be shy. I know people might want to take off. I am available also. I can give you out my card and you can contact me. We do have some Aloha brochures. Who might have some questions that we want to ask? And don't be shy, come on. Yes. You know what, Ms. Strong, can we just do that so that everybody can hear as well, or is that okay?
I'm wondering if John could explain to everyone how it was installed here and where it is and where it is not.
More than what yeah, okay, that'd be great, thank you.
Okay, so it turns out that this room was an adventure. And the adventure happened because there are steel I-beams that hold up the floor because there's a big dining hall down beneath the sanctuary. So a big steel I-beam goes across the sanctuary every place you see a post. And we knew about those. But what we additionally discovered is that each of these posts has a steel column in it, And then there's another steel I-beam that runs along here on both sides. And the problem with all that steel is that the magnetic field from the hearing loop wants to go into the steel and not through the air. So the compromise is that we made a loop that just goes around the front half of the sanctuary, and by doing that, it only has to cross one steel I-beam. So I am standing on the loop that goes across here, and then it goes up the wall just about a foot this side of all the posts, and then the back part of the loop goes across here. And then there's a second loop that runs up and goes around the choir loft. So the choir loft also has a loop. And the amplifiers are up there by Sheila in the sound room. Other questions?
If we turn the T-coil on in our hearing aids and we go someplace where there isn't a coil, do we need to turn it off?
So if you have a T-coil, you're typically not going to turn it on until you go into that venue. So it will be in your automatic mode, and then when you go into a venue, you're going to turn it on.
But what about turning it off?
And then when you leave that venue, you're going to turn it off with the program. We have Carl who wants to say something. They're more of
An easy way to understand that is you switch between your microphone in your hearing device and the T-coil. There are some programs that allow you to mix that, but by and large, you're either on T-coil or microphone.
I don't know if you can see, but yes, as Carl was saying, you can adjust it. So if you come into church, right, and you're sitting there, you can lower it, and then when the service begins, then you can raise it.
Having it all on T-coil, you get what comes through the loop very well, but if somebody's sitting next to you, talking to you, you can't hear them at all.
If you turn it down lower, I mean, when I turn my, right.
Between the mix, if it's all on T-coil, you can't hear elsewise. If it's all on mic, you can't hear in the T-coil. So one of the things your audiologist can do is to help you make a mix if you
Right,
want that.
Right, right. Okay. Do we want to have Susan Tech is here with us as well, and she's a audiologist here in town, and if you want to add to that, would you like to say something about that?
So, as you said, audiologists, we can set the T-coil as some hearing devices will let you set it as an auto coil. So anytime you go into a loop, it'll automatically go into it. But others, you have to go there. You have to change the program. It can be set up so that you can hear other people when you're on the loop or not. So however you want it set up, it can be set. So you could hear your wife sitting next to you if you're listening on the loop or not. And, you know, it can be automatic or not. So and you can raise the volume up and down. So there's a
And
lot of
Cynthia's
factors.
here.
Yeah.
Thanks, Susan. And this is Cynthia. She's Aloha as well. Thank you.
Okay. I have my T-coil set for 70% T-coil and 30% microphone. That means that I hear mostly in the loop, but if someone's sitting next to me, I can understand what they say as well.
And we have another Aloha member, Nancy. That's wonderful.
I just want to comment that if I turn my hearing aid to the loop and I forget to turn it off, when I get out in the car and start driving home, it buzzes and lets me know right away that I have to turn it off. Now, everyone is different, and I have very old hearing aids, and but it still is much, much better on the loop than without the loop. And I think the problem has been, for those of us in Aloha, we have not been meeting as a group, so I have not been using my loop for a long time, and you know, I didn't know if it worked today or not, but obviously it is. I'm within your loop, and I was able to hear as soon as I came in. But I don't think you have to worry about whether you remember to turn it off or not. It'll let you know.
Thanks, Nancy. Sir. We have a gentleman over here.
After we got this system, I called my audiologist, and unfortunately I wasn't able to speak with her because she was with a patient. But I asked the receptionist that I talked to, that I was talking to, if he could ask her if I had a T-coil. And he came back after a period and said, no, you don't have a T-coil. And I just can't believe that, because these are rather sophisticated hearing aids, or Phonak is the brand name. And so I've never resolved this.
Who wants to answer that? Do we want James or Susan? We'll have Susan. We can have Susan talk about that. I love these questions. Thank you so much. They're great.
So you're exactly right, sir. Some very sophisticated hearing aids don't necessarily include loop options like T-coil, auto-coil, or FM loop itself. But there are brands that do. Starkey, for example, includes all those options built right in. All we have to do is activate them and set them up for you. So depends on the brand. Signia, you have to ask for a T-coil door, battery door. There are just manufacturers that are kind of behind on those options. They shouldn't be, but they are. So it is what it is. But as Judy said, you have options even when you don't have a T-coil with their loop system, which is awesome. So that'll help you out. The other suggestion I would make is if you have really old hearing aids, or just hearing aids that they're okay, but maybe they're not doing everything you wish, and they have no T-coil, auto-coil, or loop option, you may want to consider new ones. But that's a big expense. So it's nice that this OTOJOY system includes options for you too.
Thank you, Susan. Carl.
I want to say something about what's happening in the wider world on this that hasn't been mentioned. The American Airlines terminal in Phoenix has recently been looped. What's looped there is all of the boarding
Gates.
places.
The gates.
The gates, not the restaurants or other things. You have to be in
Not
the
yet.
gate, and that gate is its own loop, so you don't hear the stuff from the other gates. And that will be happening with all of those, with all the terminals in Phoenix, Sky Harbor, as they remodel. Many places, New York City was a pioneer in this, in looping the taxi cabs. So that's another venue for that. We have been advocating for loops here in Tucson. When I say we, I mean the Adult Loss of Hearing Association. For about 15 to 18 years, we started the Loop Tucson program. And Tucson is one of the more looped cities in the country. There are a few areas that have passed us by recently, but we have a list of all the looped areas that we know of on our website. So if you're looking for other kinds of loop things such as meeting rooms and hotel conference rooms and that sort of thing, that's one place you can check. And you can try the Loop Finder, which used to be quite accurate, but I don't know if it's being kept up as well now. But that was countrywide.
There are great places to find where more information, and as we were talking about, you can visit the websites. Again, stories tell. As Carl had said, even hotels, temporary meetings. I first learned about OTOJOY in 2016 when I attended an annual conference at the U of A. And our founder, our chief technical officer, Thomas Kaufman, was at the U of A during this audiology conference, and he put a temporary loop down. I did not think I had hearing loss then in 2016. I'm sure I did. And I ended up listening, and it was amazing. And again, I didn't have hearing aids then. I probably had hearing loss. That was incredible. So that was back in 2016. We, OTOJOY just did a temporary loop installation in the Westin, La Paloma. It was for a church synod. And we did a temporary loop there. So there are so many options, there's so many choices, and we just need people like yourselves to continue advocating and educating, and there's a lot of people who can do that. So again, if there are there any other questions right now? No? Okay. Thank you again. James, did you want to say anything? Was there anything else? Nope, we're good? Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And again, just be passionate. You might not have to be as passionate as I am with this. Just thank you so much for being here. And just homework, remember, share your stories, talk to people, and just let's see if we can continue looping America. Thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you, Trinity.
Thank you, Judy, for a great presentation.